Hello once again everyone, and welcome to part 8 of my Warfed copyright channel. This is going to be dedicated to the statement of Richard Ian Jackson, who allegedly said he did the original Warfed design. This is this statement. We'll go through the statement after I've spoken to you about a few things, and we'll go through it word by word, and then you can judge from this statement what the truth is. The first thing I'd like to say about Ian Jackson is that I never knew of his existence until after the strikeout trial in 2018, when there was an advert put in the paper, an article put in the paper, and some obscure designer friend of his came forward and told him, now it says this in his statement, so I'll show you later on, but it seems odd that this designer friend of his never came forward at the trial to give evidence, and neither did any of the other people he sort of quoted about in his statement from Australia and all the friends. Not one single person came forward and vouched for him. And to be honest with you, he'd got no evidence whatsoever in his statement that he did the design. He leads you up the garden path, yeah. He waffles a lot, yeah. But when it comes to solid evidence, it's all got lost and it's all disappeared, which is very convenient for him. Not only did I not know about the existence of Ian Jackson in 2018, neither did the shareholders of Wolverhampton Wanderers, neither did the fans, neither did the other couple of 100,000 fans in the world. The only person who knew about Richard Ian Jackson doing the design was him, because in his statement he actually said he did it all in secret, which I'll show you later. Now, to me, if you're doing something in secret, you're doing something underhanded, believe me. Well, that's how I always interpret it. Anyway, I'm going to do a bit of a Bob Dylan here. I'm going to go through the shareholders, names of the shareholders, just to show you how many there was, and how many of these shareholders never actually knew about the actual designer of the wolf. I mean, the shareholders in the company who've got a logo making them millions and millions of pounds, been doing it for 30 years, and the shareholders don't even know where the logo come from. It just seems unbelievable, doesn't it? In Richard Ian Jackson's statement, he states that in 1963 he worked with Bernard Brett and Arthur Evans at the Wolverhampton College of Art, and he had dealings with them as well until 1965, when Bernard Brett left the College of Art to go and work at the Guildford Art College in London. I'll just go briefly through this and show you how I know all this. First of all, you can look in the first video on the first channel at the art competition entry form, and you'll see a B Brett and a Evans. Well, Evans I always thought was Alan Evans Senior, the footballer's son, and Bernard Brett. I did the research for Bernard Brett, and he's part of that research. Now, I found out that Bernard Brett was part of the son of a chainmaker, and if you excuse the pun, this Richard Ian Jackson's the missing link from the painting competition to Wolverhampton Wanderers. There's no doubt about it now in my mind. I'll just show this article which was written about Bernard Brett when he went to the Guildford College of Art. He was thrown out for fraudulently concocting a degree for the students because they couldn't get one off the council. So he was a bit of a crooked bloke anyway, and there was quite a few famous artists there at the time. There's one, what's his name now? I can't remember now, but there was a famous artist there, quite a few famous artists who probably vouch for this anyway. Next thing I want to talk about is Alan Evans. Now, Bonita Trimmer, in a witness statement, page 10, article C, tried to criticise me for saying that Alan Evans was the other person in the painting competition, which I now know he wasn't, because this Richard Ian Jackson spilled the beans and told us all about it in the court. which no one knew. I never certainly knew. But that's how it turned out to be. Now, how I found out about Alan Evans Senior, the footballer, and I linked him to the actual Wolverhampton Wanderers, my design going to Wolverhampton Wanderers, is from this article in the Shuttle. It was an obituary about his late father. Now, Bonita Trimmer, in a witness statement, page 10, article C, she kind of criticised me and said, oh, he was blind and it was ridiculous. He could judge a painting competition, and he did play bowls. But what she omitted to tell you is this, which is in this article, which is the way these people work. If you look at the last lines there, and I'll read it out. Mr. Evans, this is a statement from his son Alan in Australia. Mr. Evans Senior worked at Brinton's in the dye house for 25 years following his partial recovery. That's his eyesight recovery. His family said he was much in demand organising the company's football teams, which he would be, wouldn't he? Because let's face it, he did a good job with Alan, didn't he? Despite his eyesight problems, he also bowled to a high standard at France Village Indoor Bowls Club until he reached his 80s, and Mrs. Evans said he was always on his feet. Now, that's not that's not going to be a problem to judge a painting, is it? If you can bowl a ball, a little jack ball about what, 6, 7, 8, no, 5 inches, 25 metres up a bowling green, and then place another ball right by it, you ain't going to have that much problem judging a painting competition, are you? But this is the way they work. This is the way Bonita Trimmer works. She puts half the truth in there. Anything that benefits me, or she won't put in, and that's the way they do it. They've done it all down the line. Now, going back to Ian Jackson, when you read his witness statement, you'll see that he sort of boasts and brags about the achievements of his company, and they sort of advertise all over the world. There's never any mention of the wolf head, but he says he did it in secret. So that's his excuse for covering that up, isn't it? He said he liked Bauhaus. Well, when he got to the court, my barrister questioned him. The barrister couldn't question him long because their barrister said, I could see him, don't ask him too many questions, he's frail, he's only 84. And so my barrister only asked him a couple of questions. And I could see their barrister sniggering and laughing at my barrister behind his back. There's sort of deceitful, underhanded things that were going in there. And my barrister asked him, he said, well, how did you get to know Arthur Evans? He said, well, I worked with him from up till 1963, and then collaborated with him until 65, doing projects, right? And then they moved on, and sort of Arthur Evans and the other guy went to Guildford School of Art. So right away, there is the missing link in it. It's the missing link in it because he obviously transported my design to the club. It's obvious. It's the last piece of the jigsaw. You think about this. I've got my part of my story up to 1979, to when it disappeared. We've got the Wolves part of the story from 1979 to the present day, but we haven't got that missing piece. Now, you can say, oh, well, it's possible, but what else is that? What other alternative is that? I mean, the judge says he wasn't sure whether I entered the painting competition. It's irrelevant whether the painting got to the painting competition, which it didn't, which I'll explain to you later on, and I'll explain to you what, well, I might as well explain to you now. Because Ian Jackson said to the judge, knowing Arthur Evans and Bernard Brett, they would have thrown that painting out. Talking in the third person, he was to the judge. They would have thrown that painting out because they disliked Bauhaus style designs. Now, if you look in his witness statement, he's going on about how he loves Bauhaus design. So, if Bernard Brett and Arthur Evans threw it out, it's pretty obvious to me he's picked it up and kept it and stuck it in his folder till the opportune moment comes up to sell it to Wolverhampton Wanderers in 17 years' time when everybody's probably forgotten about and dead. That's my opinion of it all. It's very devious, isn't it? You might say, oh, blimey, but you've got to fix the pieces together. You've got to fit the pieces of the jigsaw together. How other way could it possibly have happened? I mean, don't forget the judge has authenticated my original 1963 design. I'm not talking off the top of my head. What I'm telling you is written evidence and proof. As I said, in his witness statement, he leads you up the garden path. He leads us all up the garden path. Tells us he's done this and he's done that, and he's written to this person, he wrote to that person. And then he turns around and says, well, I haven't got any, I've lost that document, I haven't got that document, this document disappeared. He tells of all documents he had. Well, there's just no proof he actually did the design. No, there's no witnesses. He talks about people in Australia, oh, they all know I did this, and so people in England, oh, they all know I did this. Well, why didn't they come forward at the court? Why didn't they vouch for him at the court? Shall I tell you why? Because he did it in secret. He never told anybody. And why didn't he tell anybody? Because he was ashamed. He was ashamed he'd stolen a design from a young 14-year-old kid and used it for his own gain. That's why. And Mr. Jackson, all your family, if you want to take me to court, you can. Take me to court, I'd love to. I mean, I might even get Ian Bowen Chambers back onto the case with Ed Brigel once he's seen this video. Because Ed was prepared to do no win, no fee. He was considering a no win, no fee. And they'll be big guns and they'll outshoot these amateurs that Wolverhampton Wanderers had, believe me. So I'm not worried about any of that sort of thing. I'm going to tell the truth. You're not going to gag me. You're not going to shut me up. It's going to come out. It's going to come out from my mouth. It's going to come out from the documentation and from the videos. And you'll see and judge, and the public will see and judge with their own opinion who designed the Wolfhead logo. Now, the last thing I'd like to say in this video is I really feel sorry for Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club. I really feel sorry, regret bringing Potion to court because I know that they had nothing to do with it. Ian Jackson obviously presented the design to Harry Marshall, and Terry Bond, who was there at the time, who notified Brown Jacobson in 2018, not Ian Jackson. He would have just kept stuck in the woodwork there and done nothing about it. But Terry Bond got in touch with Brown Jacobson, and then it pushed him then, cornered him, and he'd got to come out of the woodwork and start making up these concocted stories. But you be the judge, but that's how I feel. That's my opinion of it, because I know the truth of it. I know he never designed the design. I know he never did it. So what I'm going to do now is I've talked a bit about some of his witness stuff, but talk's just talk, isn't it? So I'm going to show you now. I'm going to show you in black and white on his witness statement what he says. And to me, it's just incredible. I can't not believe it myself, and I'm sure you won't. Anyway, here we go. Right. Here we go with Ian Jackson's statement. I'll hold it up the first page to show you it's his statement, and just to scroll the whole lot. A couple of notes on the top of mine for my own reference. I've crossed his address out. I don't want to cause trouble to the guy. He's created himself enough trouble over the past years, and I'm sure he's created quite a few sleepless nights for himself as well. What I'll say, there's page 1 and page 2 are just general explaining who he is. So we'll skip those two and we'll go to actually page 3. Now this is, look at article 10, page 3. I've underlined his article about Bauhaus. This is where, when he told the judge he liked Bauhaus, and this is that sentence which proves what I said, what he said in court. Now I can scroll out the page if you want to look at it. It's pretty irrelevant, the rest of the stuff is, but that's just to explain that he loved the Bauhaus design. Now, when he mentioned Bauhaus in court, I hadn't got a clue what Bauhaus was. I mean, I never designed the design in Bauhaus. I was just a kid. It's a kid's design. But I found out that Bauhaus was a German design company, and they were into straight lines and that sort of thing. The sort of 60s stuff you see, the straight line designs, and you can see the designs of 60s design, and you can probably, you could probably see a kid designed as well. It's hard to believe a professional designer designed those strokes and lines as they did, because it's very childish. As you can see, it says he doesn't recall having any instructions from Mr. Marshall. Well, that's confusing itself, isn't it? You know, I mean, he doesn't recall anything basically in this witness statement, as you'll read through. He said they wanted to design something that appealed to kids, and he doesn't recall whether it came from Mr. Marshall, Telly Bond, or his suggestion, which leaves the door open for him, because Telly Bond can come forward and say, oh no, yeah, I don't remember that. Harry Marshall can't because he's dead, which leaves him. So he's covered his tracks there. Then we go on to the next section of this page, which is section 19, where he goes on to explain how he designed the logo. Now, you can read it. I don't want to read it out to you. You can read it there. It's there for you to see. But what he actually told the court was, when he was asked how he designed the logo, he said, well, I drew some lines with a felt tip paper, with a felt tip pen on paper, and I stuck these lines together till I came up with some sort of wolf head figure. He says, I played around with them and that was it. Now, that's a professional designer's statement there. And when you look at the statement from Alex Broadhurst and his blog about Wolverhampton Wonders, this is Alex Broadhurst, the designer for Apple, who spoke about the Wolfhead logo. This is what Alex said. There's Alex's statement. Look under the red line what Alex said. This is from a professional designer's point of view. If anyone knows who designed the original 1979 badge, I'd love to hear from you. The fact is also tessellates perfectly, just can't be by chance. Well, it was for him, wasn't it, Ian Jackson? Done by chance, wasn't it? It's just ridiculous statement. He doesn't say anything, he doesn't explain anything. He just waffles on about this, that and the other. Then we go on to Article 21, page 6. I've just underlined one article. You can read the whole article. It's there for you to see. He goes on the bottom to say the old gold colour was sacrosanct. Well, what probably a lot of people don't realise, it was deep old gold, the kit was in the early 70s. Once my design had got into their hands, they started filtering that old gold pattern away, and they went for the custard pattern. It's the same custard pattern as the Speedway. Sorry, the same custard colour as the Speedway. So basically, if Wolves adopted the Speedway custard colours and did away with the old gold, and that was because my design was done in a custard colour, the same colour as the Speedway. He goes on to say, although Jackson Bird was not engaged to assist the club with the information beyond merely providing these concept boards. What does he mean by that? Jackson Bird had nothing to do with it, but I had the concept boards off them. Is that what he's saying? Did he get permission for these concept boards, I wonder? It's there for you to see. Look, you can read it, browse through it, freeze it, do what you want with it. Then we go to page 7. Now, this is where he goes on to say he did it in secret. If you look at the first article on page 7 there, it's there to see. He says, Jackson Bird had 2 or 3 other staff at the time, but there was the only one person who worked on the design. And he goes on to say, I retained it for myself because it interested me. Now, look at those words in that sentence. I retained it for myself because it interested me. Now, if you're doing a design, you don't retain it for yourself. If it interests you, it only interests you once you've done the design. So, To me, that in itself says I had the design, I held the design for myself because it interested me. It can't interest you before you've done it, can it? Because you don't know what you're going to do. So he must have had my design there in front of him. Well, I know he had my design there in front of him. And then an odd thing, the next one, still page 7, 24. And then he says, Jackson, there it is, look, Jackson Bird had been paid. Now, it says he did it secretly, and then he says Jackson Bird had been paid, so there's a bit of a contradiction in that statement right away. In 26, he goes on about the finished design. And then he says, tells him he done this, he did that. I'll show you, 26. He makes a statement and it says, I do not have a copy of the invoices or the subsequent letters from the club. To his response, no more evidence, nothing. So far, after this whole witness statement, he's led us up the path and he's produced nothing. Next paragraph, page 7, about him emailing the club. Says he emailed the club. He sent him emails, they sent him emails back. He said, I have not been able to find the copy of the covering email to which I attached the 2004 letter. So he's saying he sent letters and emails, but he's not producing any evidence. All he's just producing is excuses. All the way through this witness statement, excuse after excuse. We come then to page 8. It's a continuation of that letter on page 7, where he goes again to say, I can't find the email. Or I can't find a email. Then we'll go on to still page 8 on Peter Davis's claims. This is where he goes to state that a local designer who he'd collaborated with over the years had notified him of the throwout case in the paper about my claim for the copyright. Now, the strange thing about this is, he's a local designer. He must have known he did the design, if he did do it. Why didn't he come forward at the court? Why weren't Brown Jackson on this case? Look, you've got to come to court. Obviously you know something about this. Obviously you knew something about it. But obviously he wasn't going to say. But I've got my own theories about that statement there, which I'll talk to you about later on when we look at another witness statement from the guy who's supposed to have done the 2002 hexagon round my original design. The same hexagon that the judge authenticated in my design in 1963. The next item in this statement is 8 at the bottom. He goes on, he contacted Terry Bond. Well, Terry would have obviously thought he'd done the design, because he ain't going to go to Terry Bond in 1979 and say, oh, what do you think of this? Or might he might have done, I don't know. But Terry made contact with Roger Winans of Brown Jacobson, and it says in the statement there, you can see it at the bottom, what happened there. But Terry Bond knows no more about the truth of it than any of you other people do, because if he had done, he would have said in there he did come to court, but it was some of the information he was talking about was just waffle, really. And this is page 10, the last one, where he goes on to say where he knew Arthur and Bernard Brett. There. And strangely enough, if you look at Article 37, he also knew where the picture gallery. I mean, the jigsaw pieces, they're all there, aren't they? You know, it's just sort of impossible not to put it together. He knew about the picture gallery. It was an obscure gallery that, why would he know about the picture? Oh, he does art and everything. But why would he know about the picture gallery there? It was, I showed you the picture gallery, the back of that buzz on that photograph I showed you early on. It's strange he knew. Well, let's say at the least coincidentally knew. And his last article is about neither Bernard nor Arthur had any involvement with Jackson Bird. Well, whether they did have involvement with Jackson Bird is not relevant, because as far as I'm concerned, Bernard and Arthur just chucked my design out. It never even went to the painting competition. And the reason why I mentioned earlier on that it never probably went to the painting competition, because if you remember the witness statement a couple of episodes ago from that guy who actually won a prize in the painting competition, he said that he never saw my painting at the gallery. So he said he saw it at school, or he'd seen it before. I don't think he said it at school. He said he'd seen it before the art gallery competition, which I assumed he'd seen at school, being as he went to the same school as me. But he never, I mean, he was honest. He could have said, but he said he never saw it at the gallery. And the reason he never saw it at the gallery, because it never got to the gallery. It was thrown out. And as I said to you before, the only link to the gallery, to Wolverhampton Wanderers, to me painting, is Ian Jackson. When he did this witness statement, Ian Jackson produced an acetate copy that he said he'd found of the design, and it's the only one he'd got. It's for some miracle reason, after all those years, he'd got no evidence of anything else, but he found this acetate design in the drawer at home, and he gave it to Brown Jacobson. Right, that's it. Oh, well, better. Let's hold it against that, because then you can see it better. That's the acetate design that he said he presented to Harry Marshall. Right, I've done a video about this, so it'll explain to you more into the video. I'll play a bit later on, probably in the next episode. This photograph is off the internet. It's a photograph of the team actually wearing 79 shirts with my design on it. I'll close it up so you can see better. And that is the design. That yellow design there, that yellow background Wolfhead there, I took it to a printer's and I had it printed on an acetate sheet and blown up, and that is the Wolfhead off that shirt, off those shirts I've just seen you. To the side of it is the Wolfhead that Ian Jackson said he presented to Harry Marshall in 1979. You can see they're completely different. So if that one, this orange one here is the one on the shirt, where does this come in? Lastly for this episode, there's a comparison of the two designs. The one on the shirt at the bottom and Ian Jackson's design. They're totally different, aren't they? If you looked at them, glanced at them for a second or two, or you hadn't compared them, you wouldn't sort of notice the difference, but you do. But as I said to you, I've done a video explaining all this, which is a lot easier to understand and gives you more detail. And I've done a video of the breakdown of the bib design, how I created the bib design for the Speedway. So you can watch that, the episode after the next one. But next episode, I'm going to do the witness statement of the guy who said he did the border design in 2002. So until that episode, I'll see you in the next episode then, and we'll look at that witness statement from him.